guys. Welcome back to another episode of the RDY Set Podcast.
My name is Ricky.
My name is Angus.
My name is Derek. And, we have a bit of a hot topic today to talk about.
Topic.
You know, it's with all the arguments that the internet and everybody else anybody who goes out to eat these days will tell you about tipping. So, I don't know about you guys, but like on average, do you find it's kind of getting a little ridiculous on how much you have to tip at a restaurant? Or not even just a restaurant, like sometimes fast food places are starting to tip. Even like your grocery store maybe sometimes. I've heard of that before as well.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that you hate the tipping culture.
Oh yeah, totally. I'm one for getting rid of it altogether. Like I truly believe we need to adopt a system similar to, I think Australia doesn't even have tipping systems anymore either.
Oh.
So Australia, Japan, and most of Europe don't have any tipping culture.
I think like tipping is slowly getting into Europe, which I'm pretty pissed about. But there's a few restaurants popping up around that are like just saying no tips and other like
In Vancouver?
Yeah. They say like we pay our employees a livable wage and all that stuff.
Yeah. So any additional tip that you choose is just of your own choosing. You don't have to. Basically, you can just pay whatever's on the bill and leave.
A lot of people are going to be after you after this podcast. So if you want to know where Derek lives, watch through this whole podcast and you'll find out later. But so you're saying that we should take it away, get rid of it
Entirely.
I think we can't pull the rug out like immediately. That's too.
If only
we
could.
If anything, it'll have to be a transition. Like more and more restaurants start doing what those other few restaurants are doing, where they actually have to start paying their servers and like kitchen staff a decent enough wage, where tips shouldn't be the part that's relied on to basically pay for that person's wage, right?
So I have a question. So what is a livable wage for?
I think they were saying for Vancouver, it's like 23 or 24 something, right?
Wow.
Yeah.
So how much do they get paid now?
As a server, it's like minimum wage or waiter. It's minimum, which is what, like 16 or something like that?
15 something now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then, like, after tips, people are racking in hundreds a night, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Really?
They're making a lot of money on tips.
Yeah, but I mean, you're in the restaurant industry, so you would know better than we do, Ricky.
Right. So for my my second job, I work at a restaurant, and I want to say like on some nights, maybe like half of the nights that I'm working there, I make more money per hour than my main job.
Damn.
Yeah.
Like after tips, after you calculate
including tips. Yeah. It's like
crazy.
It's a lot of money, and the place that I'm working at splits tip evenly between the back of house and front of house, whereas like a lot of restaurants will just split the tips with the front of house, right? Which is like the servers and waiters and bartenders and whatnot. So they're pulling in way more than what I can imagine.
Oh, so like since you're already working in this industry, would you still want this to be? Well, Derek wants to get rid of it, and it sounds like quite beneficial for you.
It's beneficial, but it's not like a long-term career or anything. It's just something to do on the side. I don't think tipping... Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I think tipping should be... We should reduce tipping. It's really climbing up, right? Like, it used to be 10% in the late 90s, and then 15. Now it's like 18 standard. No, 18 is considered bad now, isn't it? It's like 20%.
I think it depends on the restaurant.
It depends on the restaurant, yeah. But yes, especially for us, we go to like a lot of Asian restaurants. The tipping standard is usually like 10 to 15%, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, which is insane because the service is bad.
Yeah, usually it just you tip them to get ignored, sometimes, or to get yelled at because you don't know how to read the menu.
Or you gotta like ask them like to fill my water or my tea.
Yeah.
And they look at you, be like, "Why don't you do it yourself?" They give you that look like this, and you're like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and you're the one that's saying sorry. So, and then you give them 50%. Damn. I wish I was that server. I think it's getting a bit ridiculous.
But even like when you go to a coffee shop, you order coffee or like a latte or whatever or tea, and you're paying like 15% on.
Oh my god!
Like your fucking $4
yes.
coffee.
Yeah.
It's like,
Or like the other day, I went to a coffee shop and I got a coffee and a donut. Like donut's like $4, and then the coffee was like $4, and after tips, everything was like $13-14. I'm like, what the fuck?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy how even fast food places like Starbucks, right? It's just you're just ordering a drink and that's it, right? You're not like, I guess you're just taking the order.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
But so my question to you guys is, assuming they get paid an hourly wage,
Okay.
yes, like
We're with you there.
minimum or higher, in their job description, when they get hired for that, it's like, say you're a barista, your everyday task is to make
coffee.
coffee. And so say they made like this huge carafe of coffee, and when you order a coffee, they tip they grab a cup, they pour it, and then they hand it to you. Does that warrant a 15% tip?
No, but
So
then the
that's
same
the thing.
can be said about like going to a bar, and then all they do is like they fucking remove the fucking cap from a bottle of beer, and then they give it to you. Like, is that worth
The 15% tip? Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, for a beer, some places like, or most people would just throw them $1 or whatever,
Yeah.
right? But even then, like that's a lot.
Because like the buck per patron is like
But then
an add up per night.
with the tipping, I thought it was never meant to be like a long term like a thing. Like
Yeah, because
you earning tips should not be
it should not be.
reliant for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
But it should be kept low so that you can desire more and better yourself to work in an industry where it does not require tips or at the mercy of somebody, right?
Yeah. So like the thing is, because tipping was always service based, right? Like the original intention was you tip somebody based off of how well they treated you during your stay at a restaurant or your visit to a restaurant, or how well they like helped your needs out when you needed, like, I don't know, room service, or like when you're staying at a hotel, your sheets changed or whatnot. But like now it seems like even with poor service, it's still kind of
It's still like
expected.
minimum
Expected.
10.
Yeah.
So-
and you're like, well, then what am I actually paying for if it's not for the service? Then
It's not mandatory, especially in Asia, right? Like, they don't accept tips. Like, they hire you to do a good job.
yeah, it's built into the price though. I
Yes.
will say that, like, the livable wage, by paying a livable wage, you get rid of the tips, but all that extra cost, even for restaurant owners who are worried, like, oh, I'll never survive with my like margins like that. But I'm like, no, you build it into the price, and at a certain point, it's like people know exactly what they're paying for. You don't have to like second guess with, oh, it says $10 on the menu, and then, well, you have your tax, but tax is easy enough. But if you built the tip into that price and you say no tip, so all everybody else sees is just that tip, plain $10. If it's built into like, it's like, let's say tip pushes it up to $13 or $14, right? And then you just say, okay, so I'm paying the $14, no tip, and I just have to pay, like, for us it's like 5% tax here for a service. So it makes it so much easier for even the consumer to look at it and be like, oh, okay, so this is how much I'm paying, rather than you going to a restaurant and, you know, have you ever like whipped out a calculator? You're like, oh, how much is this going to cost after tax and tip?
Right.
And then you're like trying to calculate it out, and then you're like,
Oh yeah, some
that's this
places
per
in
person.
Asia they have their taxes built into the price as well already too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, especially like grocery stores, right?
Yeah.
Because then you're like, oh, it's like, I remember they had an experiment. I forgot, it was like a grocery store down in the US or something like that, and they had built their tax into their prices, and everybody at the till was still super surprised when their bill came out to exactly what everything added up to. And even though they had the specific sign at the tills where they're like, our tax is built into our price, everybody was still like expecting to pay
more
tax.
That'd be a really interesting like psychological experiment, because you're already expecting to pay more, and now paying less than what you expected, right?
Yeah, and then it's like that would be a very positive experience for the consumer, right? They're like, oh, it's perfect. Now I don't have to worry about like calculating in my head like exactly how much more I have to pay because of like all this tax and all that stuff.
I guess the conversation we're having is very negative towards tipping, but we also understand why the tipping culture is a bit high, because especially in Vancouver,
the cost of living
here is very expensive. So we're not saying like, oh, 15%, 20%, like, oh, that's, get rid of it, it's too high. Like, we do understand it is very expensive, especially where we're living, and in order to make a, livable wage, you need the tips. But I think the biggest things we're talking about is the tipping is coming from service, right?
Yeah.
How well you're treated. And if someone doesn't give us a nice service, or when you're going in there, it's an Asian place, they don't even look at you. You have to ask them to refill your water. They ask you for 15%. It should be 10%.
Yeah. So
come on.
Because like in order is like, even though there is a minimum, it's like it's a courtesy minimum, right?
Right.
Yeah.
If you get treated very poorly at a restaurant, like, are you still expected to give the tip? Like, the standard answer should be no. But it feels like a lot of the expectations now are that's still the minimum you should give. Yeah. And it feels, that definitely doesn't feel like it's worth it.
Yeah, it's the expectations. I feel like people shouldn't expect to get tips. Yeah. Because I think this way kind of ruined that mentality that if you don't get it, it's like, oh, it's the end of the world.
So like, that was a terrible customer.
Yeah, terrible customer and stuff like that. And I read like an article where it's basically this person was bashing on people who can't afford to give tips. And then one thing that stood out was,
then they were saying like, don't go out then.
Yeah, don't. Yeah. It's like, you saw that. It's like, don't. Yeah, if you can't afford to pay tips, just don't go out and eat. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. How are these restaurants gonna live then? Like, then you're gonna run out of job. Right. I'm like, it doesn't make sense, because you're going out to eat. It's, even if you get fast food, like what you said, like coffee. I went to the airport. I ordered tacos, Mexican food, and the lady was so rude to me. I asked her, do you have shrimp? She's like, no, like super loud. I'm like, okay, I'll get the chicken, please. And after, when I was paying, a thing popped up and it's like, add tips. Yeah. And I looked at it, and she kept looking at me and looking down at the machine. And I got guilt tripped, and I gave her 15%. And then after, I told my parents like, why'd you give them tips? It's like, I don't know why. I should not have, because it's fast food too. It's like, you're just...
But also you feel guilty to not tip when that menu shows up on the screen.
When your menu, and especially when they make eye contact with you and they look down at the machine and back at you, that's not okay.
That's why you always look out at the machine and never look up.
Yeah, and then especially like, they make it so there's so many buttons to press. So when you say, there's like, by default, it's like 15, 18, 20%. Yeah. And then the custom button is like another button. So when you hit the custom button, there's like 2 more other buttons you gotta press. So when you press that, the person's already know, this person's not gonna pay me that 15%. So it's...
Some restaurants don't even... I came across one of them, and they're like, where the other option is, they like grayed it out. Like they made the option like not choosable. So basically they were forcing you to pay tips no matter what.
They can't do that though.
Can't do that.
No, apparently they did. I could not find the other option tip button anywhere. Yeah, so unless it was like some other random
pay them in cash. Not just a fucking 10 cents.
Oh man.
Yeah, so it's just kind of it's just really bad, because when it becomes an expectation, I feel like you might as well just raise your restaurant prices by like 15% at that point.
A lot of times I feel like it's also sort of like a ransom now. Like, if I pay for a coffee, obviously you order first and then you pay, and then they're making it, right? But then during that transaction where you're paying, like, you're at the mercy of them, right? Like, I feel like I'm supposed to tip when I haven't received my product yet. And
after.
Yeah, and after. And then, I don't know, sometimes I'm like second guessing, what if they don't make my latte as good as what they normally would if I
Yeah.
just not tip or something like that. You know, I get a little bit like paranoid. I feel like I'm at their mercy.
Oh, okay.
You ever think about that?
Well, I knew in the food industry, you never piss off the chef because they might spit on your food.
I've never done that. No.
Oh, yeah. Of course you didn't. But yeah, I don't know. I feel the tipping should go back to 10%. In my opinion, I think it's getting way too high. Like starting at 15%,
Right.
that is way too high.
Yeah, because like when it starts creeping up again, like say something else happened, and then like it starts creeping up again. So like, are we going to start expecting like 20%, 25% of the
Yeah,
bill?
exactly.
Right.
And you're like, dude, that's like a quarter of the bill at 25%. It's like, am I paying a quarter of the bill in like taxable price in
Right.
tip prices? I was like, if that's the case, then you might, like I said, you might actually be killing your own industry at that point
Yeah,
because
it's like restaurants are going to be like, okay, well, if the front is getting this much money, we might as well just, have it takeout only and we have tips that way. And
Yeah.
maybe the boss will work in the front, right?
Yeah.
They'll just hire less workers is what it is. Because if they know they're going to get this much in tips, might as well just don't hire maybe only one person and do takeout only.
Yeah.
So there has to be a point where it's like, okay, we can't exceed that much. Of course, it makes sense to pay more when it's fancier food, right? Like fine dining, of course you pay like,
but that's also service based, right?
yeah,
Because
service-based, yes.
Fine dining, part of the experience is because
fine
they're
dining.
supposed to give you very good service for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the range for fine dining? Like 25%?
No, I think
20%?
20% seems to be a good
Yeah.
margin. Yeah, 20 to 20.
Because even now at dim sum sometimes, like, I pay like 20%.
Holy shit.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, 15 to 20%.
I'm still on 15
My,
right now.
No,
my dad,
yeah,
my
my
dad
ha-
still gives like 10%.
Like at night, even at dinner at those seafood restaurants, sometimes we give like 20%.
Oh.
Because they like change the plates, right? All the time.
Oh, I see.
And they come yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess if it's for like a 10-person feast kind of set meal,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
But if you're going out for like regular dinner with like a smaller group, I'm not quite sure that. But that's of course that's also based on opinion, right? So it's not like up to me to say how much everyone should pay. So it's like if you feel like that's the level of service that you got, then you can pay that amount. That's totally fine. But yeah, what we're saying is when it starts becoming a minimal expectation, then the level of service does go down. Like, because people know they're getting it anyways, regardless.
Yeah.
And so whether or not they give you good service or bad service, they're still getting that 15% minimum.
Okay.
Then like, why would they put in that extra effort at that certain point, right?
So when was the last time you ever like not tipped?
Yeah, I was actually going to ask that. Like when was the last time?
Where you're expected to tip and you did not tip?
Yeah, or like the service is so bad, you're like, you deserve no tip.
I don't think I didn't tip. I got, what was this? It was like at a cafe, and the server had to remake mine. They had to remake my what kind of latte did I have? Like some sort of French vanilla latte. They had to like remake it 3 times.
Whoa.
And I don't know why, because he was like, oh, sorry, I'm gonna have to remake this. And then like I had to wait 20-ish minutes for a latte. And so the good thing was, for some odd reason, that place is like when you go up to grab your coffee is when you pay for it, right? And so I didn't put 0. I put like 5% tips. And I was like, at least he apologized for it.
Did he stare at you weird?
I didn't take a look, but like honestly,
You were already pissed
Yeah.
because you took 20 minutes to make your latte.
yeah, I was like, if you guys don't have enough people, maybe you should add another more. But of course, I know scheduling kind of differs, but I was like, 20 minutes for a latte was a bit extensive, like for a wait time. And I'm like, okay.
Was it worth the 20 minutes wait?
No, not really.
Okay. If you said it was worth it, I'd be like, oh shoot.
Yeah,
okay.
it was average.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know, I think I'm with you. Like, I don't think I've ever like tipped 0%.
You just
lowest
tip
was like
less.
5,
Yeah.
or like $1 or $2 out of a whatever, like a bill.
Yeah.
So last time I was in Toronto, at the airport coming back home, and there was this bar in there because I was a bit early for my flight. So nobody sat me at that bar. It was like it was just two ladies working, but they clearly didn't want to seat anybody because they were just
Busy?
lazy.
Oh, they're
Yeah, it was
lazy.
slow. It wasn't busy.
Oh,
But
shit.
they were just like they were moving at 0.5 speed.
What?
It was like slow motion, yeah. And then they were just, it was just bad attitude. I got like 2 beers, and that was it. It took forever to flag them over to order.
Oh
took
my
forever to
God.
get a menu. It was just like kind of annoying.
Bad customer service.
Yeah. So, but in the end, I still gave them like $1.
Is that 10%? Oh,
No, it was, it was probably like 10%.
10%?
Out of for my 2 beers. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't think I have. I only give like 10%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, I have. It was a Chinese restaurant. They gave me very bad service. The food didn't taste good either, and I gave them 0%. Just paid on the spot, and I'm like, that's it. And then it wasn't good.
Wait, we could bleep this out, but which restaurant was this?
Oh, I forgot. It was just some. It was
Was
a
it
bad
here?
experience. It was in Vancouver, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But like, I didn't care because I was pissed and I was hungry. And they,
Hangry.
I was very hangry, and the experience wasn't good. The food wasn't good. It was overpriced. I'm like, what the heck is this? And they make me, and of course I'm not gonna pay tips.
Yeah.
So that was only one time. But I think my parents are a bit more, when it comes to that, is they couple of times they like tell the chef to come out.
Oh.
Yeah, and
Wow.
they're like, how do you cook this?
Holy shit.
Yeah.
I
Which
think
is not good.
Oh shit. They're
Yeah.
like real Karens.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
but that's only if it's like done really bad.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Or it's like we paid this amount of money for
Yeah.
this food. Like my parents are also in the food industry, so maybe that's they kind of
Their
have
expectations
their
are-
expectations a bit more higher. But it does get a bit awkward. But it's like for my parents, it's like the amount of money you pay, it has to be worth it. If you charge me this amount, like crazy amount of money, and you give me something low quality or it's like done poorly, that's on you. So then they would like tell you to redo it. But if you mess up again, they'll tell the chef to come out and tell them why are you messing up. Because it's like
Because you see the price, you're already willing to pay that price.
Yes,
But
it's
don't
like-
give you're like don't give out like an inferior product.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you're going to an expensive steakhouse. You want medium rare, and they keep giving you overcooked steak. You're gonna be pretty pissed by the second time. You probably want to talk to the chef. So that's my parents' mentality. So it's like even then, like they would give poor service, they would give like just 10%.
Oh.
Yeah. And if it's really poor, they don't give anything. like really poor, you have to do really, really bad. Like no water, no nothing. Like mean to you. Do we know what's on the menu? Like this only happened like twice.
Yeah.
So that's the
I
rare
think for all of
occasion.
us, it's a very rare occurrence, but for us, it's definitely more service based, even though it's like
It's definitely service based.
Yeah.
I believe, for me, still, I feel tips is all service based. I used to be a waiter. I know things are very different right now, but even then, like I was told to always just give 100% on your job. Doesn't matter if it's for the time being, maybe not long term, but that's what you're supposed to do. Like you go in there, put the hard work in, at least try your best.
Right.
Even if I understand people have bad days, but still, like if you're having a bad day and you perform less than you usually could, and you just got like 10%, that's
on you.
That's on you, right? You can't complain like customers are bad. Like, come on, your attitude, like my attitude was probably not the best. Not you,
But,
my
yeah,
attitude.
but then your expectation should not be at that height.
At that height, right? So that's why, kind of like what you said, the tipping culture is kind of changing that expectations, and when you kind of start expecting it, I feel sometimes people quality tends to drop because they already expect it, right? That's why I kind of like the Asian culture over there where tips is
everything's
not
built in.
everything's built in. They don't expect tips, and they even want you to give tips because it's like an insult,
Right.
Yeah.
right? So wow, controversial. So for everyone that wants to know Derek's address, we're definitely not going to give that out because we need him on the next podcast alive.
But I'm really curious for our listeners. what was their expectation for tipping? Like, is 15 still your normal, or are you tipping over 18-20% now?
Yeah. For me, I think 10 to 12% is the most lowest you can give. And then when it starts to hit to 20%, that's when I'm like, that's like fine dining, like really great experience. They better change your plate like 2 or 3 times, like pour you tea, like that kind of service.
Yeah.
That's when they deserve a lot. And let us know if you want to get rid of the tipping service or you want to keep it.
All right, and thank you for listening to our episode today. Be sure to follow us on our Instagram, our Spotify, our YouTube, and TikTok.
Yeah, they should all be in our Linktree link on our profile, and just one click away.
All right. See everyone on the next one. Bye.